So we go to the shootout.
Yes, this is where lots of people are interested. So, of course, the context, South Africa had won their shootout in the previous game against Cape Verde. Ronwen Williams, the hero.
Saved 4 penalties.
Yeah, he was wearing red.
Yeah, he was wearing red.
And that's I've read the internal WhatsApp messages. Those spitting on Edwin will not tolerate it. Things happen. Things can go wrong. They are just premises. Let's not do that.
And to add to your list of teams that won successive penalty shootouts. I think Egypt in the last AFCON, they won a couple of shootouts before they lost
Cote d'Ivoire.
The one.
So they won Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, and lost to Senegal.
So they beat 2 teams back to back.
Yes, back to back, and then lost to Senegal.
And then ever since that one, they haven't won any shootouts.
Lost to Senegal
because they lost to Senegal once in the AFCON, once in the World Cup qualifiers, and now DRC. And to think that before all of this, for 40 years, they hadn't lost a penalty shootout. The catch-up principle, you know.
The interesting one in the last shootout was that the hero, Abu Gabal, was the one who missed the last penalty against Congo.
And he was just being thrown away, just like Rowan Williams.
Exactly.
Thrown away.
All right, let's get into the shootout.
So the first one for Murphy, and this is a very important thing. A lot of teams do not understand this, but if you have penalty takers and they can come on before the shootout, you bring them on when you can. Murphy came in for Victor Osimhen. I saw a few people complaining, why is Osimhen being taken off? He's Nigeria's most important player. Osimhen has proven, he scored some penalties, but he's proving very unreliable, very sketchy in his penalty technique. So a few times it's been saved. He's not Nigeria's penalty taker for that reason. That is why he was taken off. Murphy was brought on to take penalties. Kenneth Omeruo as well. A fantastic penalty taker, brought on specifically for penalties. And of course, I did mention that goalkeepers in red usually win in penalty shootouts. But I also said that teams that shoot first in the penalty shootout also oftentimes 60% of the time,
they have a 60% chance of winning.
They win the shootout. And Nigeria opted to shoot first in this shootout, Murphy taking the first shot. So we'll get to his efforts. Prior to this, in the previous shootouts, we saw how Ronwen Williams approached his penalty shootouts. He always moved, whether it was to the right or to the left. And this is where research and analysis comes in. The Nigerians obviously figured it out that this is a goalkeeper who can dives really early. So what do? They go straight down the middle for at least the first couple of shots. So he goes down the middle, and he scores. Murphy puts Nigeria 1-0 up. A very good penalty. The next to take a penalty was Mokoena for South Africa. Of course, Mokoena had scored South Africa's penalty right before extra time. So you'd expect him to, have an advantage in this situation. But stats told me that a player who scores in the normal time, if a player scores a penalty, they are likely to score 90% of the time. However, when it gets to a shootout where the pressure increases, they know that if they miss their team goes out, it drops all the way to 60%. So Mokoena faced that. And unfortunately, that was not the best penalty. It was not too far to the right, not too far in the corner, at a comfortable height for the goalkeeper, not too high. So Bali made a good save in that instance. The next penalty was for Nigeria, Kenneth Omeruo, another player who had been brought on specifically for penalties. And he has a very good record in terms of the shootouts. I've seen him score a few. He hardly ever misses. And you can look at the composure that he takes straight to Ronwen Williams' right through the goalkeeper out. That's a confident penalty taker, one you should always have in these situations. Next penalty for South Africa, Mayambela. Mayambela for South Africa.
He had a very interesting facial expression.
not the most confident facial expression.
No, like, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, he's going to. Okay. So Mayambela steps forward and puts it up and to the left of Nwabili. Of course, you can say that it's a very good penalty. It still looks like a comfortable height for the goalkeeper, but it was far enough into the corner that it made it very difficult for Nwabali to get to it. So, decent penalty. If you are hitting your penalties, make sure that if it's not high enough, it's far into the corner, that it doesn't hit the post, but at least it gets out of the drive of the goalkeeper. So at this stage, Ronwen Williams had faced 2 penalties. He had been beaten by both. Now, Ola Aina steps up to the plates, and he has a clear idea of where he's going. However, the way he hits the ball was horrendous. And I'd like us to go back a little bit. Let's slow it down so we see exactly how he made contact with the ball. He doesn't hit it with his side foot. It hits more of the edge of his boots, which lifts the ball over the bar. So take a look at how he hits it. Doesn't exactly hit it with his side foot, but hits right at the top of his foot. So it just lifts it over the bar. If you are a player and you hit the ball like that, it's going to go high. It's going to be lifted, and it ends up over the bar. It puts South Africa back into the game because of that miss. Our next penalty taker, Makopa, Safo's great friend, Evidence Makopa, steps out to the plate. This is a chance for him to put South Africa back into this game, put them level, and into the penalty shootout. He steps out to the plate. He has one scored penalty. Seems like 100% record, which will go down to 50 very soon, because this is a horrible penalty from Makopa. Again, it's not far into the corner, at a very comfortable height for the goalkeeper to save, and he makes the right decision. Once a penalty goes in a certain direction, and it's a good height for the goalkeeper, he is going to save it once he moves in that direction. Of course, if Nwabali had dived in the other direction, that would have been a good penalty. But if the goalkeeper dives in the direction you are taking your penalty, it's going to be saved. And that is a pretty bad penalty from Evidence Makopa. Now, Troost-Ekong, another player who are taking a penalty in 90 minutes. In that one, he had gone down the middle. So, obviously, there's some precedent. Even in the previous game, the one he scored earlier in the competition against Ivory Coast. Against Ivory Coast. He
went down the middle.
He went down, sort of down the middle. As a goalkeeper, if you see this, the player has prize. He's going to go down the middle. You expect something similar, don't you? However, no. He goes down the right-hand side. And if you see Ronwen Williams' movement, he hesitates. He stays in the middle for as long as possible, hoping that the ball will come straight at him. So we are going to take a look at a slowed-up version of the penalty kick. And you can see that Williams hesitates for as much as possible, stays in the middle for as much as possible before the shot is taken. So he reacts to the shot, but it's already past him and there's nothing he can do. So there's good anticipation from the goalkeeper because he knows exactly where the penalty taker usually goes. But then the penalty taker also knows probably the tricks of the game, knows that the goalkeeper probably expects him to go straight down the middle and changes his spot, goes high, goes wide, and there's no chance of the goalkeeper reacting quickly enough. Now we go to Mvala. Yet another fantastic penalty taker in the shootout. Usually scores. There's hardly any problem with him. He comes on. It was a terrible mistake to concede a penalty in mid-game, but this was a chance to right his wrongs, ensure that South Africa stayed in the competition. So, great penalty taker. And just like Makopa before him, he goes to the goalkeeper's right, at a really comfortable height if the goalkeeper had dived in that direction. But fortunately for him, Nwabali moves the other way, so he scores no problem for South Africa. And now this is a chance for Nigeria to win it. And a player who had been brought on mid-game, Kelechi Iheanacho. Everyone will know him from his Man City and Leicester days. Comes from Nigeria. Very good penalty taker, as you can see, one miss. Left-footed. Lefties usually go for the bottom right. He decides to go for this angle, which is more difficult for a lefty to get right. But once you do, he hits the post and it goes in. Very difficult, almost missed it, but still managed to put the ball at the back of the net. And Nigeria win the penalty shootout because of proper research on the goalkeeper they were facing and some really good takers who knew exactly what they were doing in the penalty box.
Guys, interesting thoughts there. Initial comments on the shootout. How many of us expected it to go this way?
I wasn't surprised because if you watch the penalty shootouts between Cape Verde and South Africa, the obvious difference was Williams. So Nigeria would know that if we work on Williams, we have a chance because the South Africans are clearly not very good penalty takers. And it's played out exactly how you'd expect it to play. If you make it very difficult for Williams to save and we score ours, we'll be through. And that's exactly what happened. Edwin has done a very fantastic analysis of the levels with which the South Africans were playing their penalties. It was so clear, a bit of elevation, and if it's going to the left or the right, it's not going too far wide. So it's at a level that the goalkeeper could save. Just make a move and you just have your hand to the ball. And that's how, even Mvala, the penalty that he played, if Stanley Nwabali had gone to that direction, would have easily saved it. I mean, if you play your penalties this way, I'm not too sure what you would be doing. Because the best penalties I've seen has a bit of elevation, targeting the very corners. That's what Ola Aina tried to do. I mean, target the far right, far left corner. It was the left, the left corner. But the technique he used actually, saw the ball go very high up the pitch. And that's how it is. So they did their research, they did their analysis. See, let's make it difficult for Rowan Williams to save the penalty and let's score our penalty because definitely the South Africans will miss. And that's exactly what the Nigerians did in that penalty shootout.
Two things I picked from it. South Africa didn't learn from their past shootout. We spoke about this, that they were bad against Cape Verde. Their kickers were bad. They were poor. You see, we've heard stories about Jordan Ayew and after training, players practicing their penalty. Yeah. I don't think these people practiced their penalty. They were expecting Williams to pull up something. Because truth of the matter is, I believe if the penalty had gone a longer distance, Nigeria would have lost. Because I still feel like Williams was not figuring out what was happening to him. They had clearly worked on him. So the longer it goes, the longer he understands what's happening and he can make saves. Second thing is, Nigerians didn't study Nwabali.
The South
Africans. I want someone you guys to tell me something you studied about Stanley Nwabali.
Ooh, okay.
He was equally a fast diver. Yeah. He equally dived. Yes. He never stayed in the middle. Yes. So if Makopa had decided to go down the middle, he would have scored. If Mokoena decided to go down the middle, he would have scored. Because just like Rowan Williams, and everybody knew Rowan Williams is an early diver, and the Nigerians targeted the middle. If the South Africans had done the same thing, at least two of their penalties would have saved. And I don't want to even blame Stanley Mokoena a lot, because he's a first penalty taker. These things do happen. We've seen a lot of people miss their first kicks and gone ahead to win the penalty. I expected someone like Makopa, being the third penalty kicker, to have figured out what was going on, because you see, the blessing with coming on later is you study the goalkeepers, you see them move. There was not a single time Nwabali stayed in the middle. He was just diving, and I expected South Africa to have gone down the middle just like they were doing to Rowan Williams. And for Rowan Williams, I don't blame him so much. I think the spotlight, my South Africans, when Lehakwe was saying, Williams, can you do us this favor like he did us the last time? Like, there was just too much on him. And you could see that the Nigerians were changing their spot kick from where they like to play it. We commended Williams for staying in the middle against Cape Verde. He was not moving. He was so sure of wherever he was going that if you try to feint him, he's still in the middle. You check the Omeruo penalty, Omeruo fainted him, and Senior Man had already gone. So I just felt like what helped him against the Cape Verde game, it had changed. The Nigerians had figured it out, and the Nigerians were spot on during that penalty. And I've expected that after Ola Aina had missed that penalty, South Africa would have capitalized on it. And I don't know what evidence was doing with that kick.
Evidence, Makoko.
I don't.
The penalties were really poor. The penalties were not good.
I mean, it was at the same elevated height.
And you know what would be very interesting? Nigeria Cote d'Ivoire going to a penalty shootout. Because these are teams who have both played penalty shootouts.
Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire played a penalty shootout spot on.
Yes.
5 out of 5 with that penalty shootout. And the amount of data, the amounts of research that will go into it. And if it gets to the penalty, you have Sterling Wabali, who is very good with saving penalties. Fofana is not that good with
Fofana,
who is not really. He saved
one.
He saved one
during the shootout against Senegal, he was not that good.
But you see, that game gave us some very excellent penalties.
Exactly. So if
even the Senegal, the one
Which
the
one?
Senegal
Cote d'Ivoire, even the one
to
they
hit
missed,
the post to go out.
So you have good kickers on the Ivorian side. You have a good goalkeeper. For the Nigerians, you have good kickers, but you know that they have the tendency of missing. So if you are a researcher or you are whoever, I expect both teams in their training that after the training drills, we practice shootouts. After the training drills, we practice shootouts. If you'd have to bring on this goalkeeper who was crying at the last AFCON after he dropped the ball, he's the reason why they had to get Fofana to come in, because there was not really much confidence in him there. That's Ivory Coast's second choice goalkeeper. If he is better at penalties and you have to bring him on, just like how the Dutch was doing with Tim Krul and Olsen, better do that, because we've seen that this AFCON has the tendency of traveling the long distance. So they should put in that way, because it's not a lottery anymore, it's a science. Yeah. It's a science. And I feel like if South Africa had practiced their kicks rather than depending on their goalkeeper, because it's like the job is mostly on the kicker. The goalkeeper just has to pull up a heroics, but mostly the focus is on you, the kicker. I think the South Africans forgot that. And they were thinking, because they were happy when they got to the penalty, they were happy.
Hoping that Williams would
but Nigeria had figured them out.
Just like I asked from the previous game, who would be more hurt by this result?
South Africa, of course. Definitely. I mean, you've played so well to get to this point, kept clean sheets, the penalty. I mean, they've played very well. They've played some excellent football so far. Even yesterday, under pressure, they were building from the back, playing in between their lines, trying to create chances. But I think the person they should be cursing the most is what's I've forgotten his name, the right back, Mudau.
The number 20?
Oh God. That was an
that
opportunity.
It was
just, you would have dreams about
it was just there. Just take your time.
Because Mokwena, the free kick, I mean, it was
Mwabali
parries it back.
Just to you. The commentator was like he was thinking of going to do the celebration rather than finishing the ball at that point.
That was
I mean, just take your time and just connect the ball into the net.
But
and then
to be fair to him, were there not mitigating circumstances?
Yeah, I think the ball bounced.
His body shape. I don't know if my producers have that clip though. I don't know. Maybe they should put that on.
He could just have taken his time, connected.
But see, these are the moments. Yes. You see, you don't get this is it. Because yes, Ademola Lookman had missed and all of that, but this was like the last second.
A moment.
And
that would have been a dagger in the heart.
They said he's the Kolomwani of South Africa. You put that in, and then my guy with the red boots can just come out and do the celebration with you. You get that kind of thing.
So that's it. I think it's a missed opportunity for them.
Yeah.
How would we describe South Africa? Because they were in a group with
Mali, Tunisia
and Namibia. How should we look from our perspective? I don't know how they will feel about that. Safi, let me start up with you. How do we as a success? Do you think it's been a successful run?
It's a success. I before coming, even the South Africans didn't have much hope in this Bafana side. But to be fair, they've never had much hope in the Bafana side. If you watch this Trevor Noah special, they never have hope in the Bafana side. But the thing is, to me, it's not about stats, it's about the way they play together. I think if they continue with this same crop of players and maybe get a prolific striker, because I think they are just prolific forwards away from being a very big side to reckon with, because Tembazwane, Mokoena, Pesitao, Makupa, even the back line, Mvala just had bad moments, but you see, that Sundown crop, so far as that Sundown crop continue to dictate the pace of African football, they continue to challenge the Alalis and they continue to challenge the Wedads. They would be, because from them comes a different crop, comes strikers, comes newer generation. Then there are the South Africans who are also trying to ply their trade outside. Keep this crop, because it's clear they can locate themselves. They can break the lines of teams. They can pass. They play very beautiful football. If you keep this crop, I don't know if they are going to still go on with Hugo Bruce, but I think they should go on with Hugo Bruce.
Yeah, that was my second question. Maybe
if they still go on with him, I think. And the funny thing is, the blessing of this AFCON is the next AFCON is just this next January. It's not really far off. So you are still being given the second chances. As to whether some countries will take their second chances, I don't know. But for teams like South Africa, I feel like they can work on it. This is a very promising team. If there's ever been a time whereby South Africa can win the AFCON since 1996, I think this is the time. This is really the time.
Kwame, Hugo Bruce. Okay, well, first of all, your own rating of South Africa, and whether the second question, Hugo Bruce, does he stay? Does he leave?
It's been a huge success for them. I mean, the last time they were in the semi-final was in 2000.
Beat Ghana to get to the semi-final.
So it's obviously a huge step. Safo rightly said the next AFCON is just next year. So a lot of these teams would have, had the tournament experience, would have understood how it feels like to get to this level. Having a taste of it gives you that impetus to want to, get to that level again. So yes, disappointing not to get to the final, but it's been a huge success for them. For Hugo Bruce, it's still old. I think he's the oldest manager in the tournament, around 70 years. The next AFCON is just some few.
So you think it would be wise if
it would be wise? Just stay with him. Stay with him. Definitely they would analyze and know exactly where the problem is, and I think it's clear they are not scoring enough goals, and it's becoming a huge issue for them. So I believe they have a very good crop. Just build on that, and then let's see how the next AFCON will be for them.
All right, we'll see how the South Africans will be welcomed. But first, they need to play DRC in the 3rd and 4th place game on Saturday.